Today, we're looking at a brown ink from KWZ Honey. Now, as always, there's timestamps down below so you can skip around, but if you got the time, it really does help me out if you check out the entire video. Hi, I'm an ink guy. If you want to check out the playlist with other brown inks in it, there's a link for that down in the description below. There are 3 papers used to standardize some of the writing samples: Clairfontaine, Tomoe River, and Rhodia paper. Let's take a look at 90 GSM Clairfontaine. We have no bleeding, no ghosting. The 1.1 has no feather spread, halo sheen. It does offer shade. Take a look at the KWZ, how it changes from the K to the Z. In Honey, how much shading is in that capital H. This is really very nice. The extra fine is about the same tones that we get in the stub, with no feather spread, halo sheen, and some amazing shading. Absolutely love this. 17 seconds to dry. The medium is the same tone as the extra fine, but no feather spread, halo sheen, still great amounts of fantastic shading, 22 seconds to dry. The scrubbies from left to right show not as much color variation as we get in the writing, although it is there, and the smear shows that you could recover it if you made that mistake while writing. To make sure there's a range of experience with this ink, all the writing samples are done with this Jinhao 159 with a 1.1 stub, this Jinhao X750 with a medium, and this Jinhao X750, I think I said 750, this is a 450, X750 with an extra fine nib. Then a Pilot Custom 823 with a broad nib was inked up, used for a day, and used to take the notes for this video. Now, let's take a look at the second standard paper, 52 GSM Tomoe River. We have no bleeding, no ghosting. The 1.1 has no feather spread, halo sheen. It does show quite a bit of shading in there. Much more gradual in some of its tone, offset because of the cream color paper. But if you look at the letter Y, you really see where it's at and the difference between the K and the Z. Now the extra fine is a little bit lighter than the stub. No feather spread, halo sheen, and yes, gorgeous shading all the way through. Look at the word the. From light to dark, quick, from dark to light to dark, just beautiful. 24 seconds to dry. Medium is the same tone as the extra fine, with no feather spread, halo sheen, and still gorgeous shading all the way through. Look at the word brown, from darker to much lighter, where Fox goes lighter to darker. 33 seconds to dry. The scrubbies from left to right do show some color variation, but there's more of it in the writing, and the smear test, you would not be able to recover that. I agree with Vita. There's a lot to learn by doing multiple chromatographies. The one on the left is done the way it's supposed to be done. A line of ink is put down and immediately put in the water for 10 to 15 seconds. And we see this kind of light blue. Now it's forming a line on the bottom. It is pushing its way up. Then we get into some yellows and some oranges at the top. That's what's making this such a great brown ink. The one on the right was let dry for 10 minutes before it was dunked into water. The blue line across the bottom is much more seeped in and there. Little of it does move up. We see not as much of the yellow as it's really traveling well with the orange. I'm expecting that the blue will be the holdout color here. The third standard paper is 80 GSM Rhodia dot pad. No bleeding, no ghosting. The 1.1 has no feather spread, halo sheen, less shading than we've seen in the other papers so far. The extra fine is about the same tone as the stub, with no feather spread, halo sheen, some very nice shading, where it goes from a dark to mid-tone very regularly, like the goes mid to dark, mid at the top of the H, but dark back down into the E. Super nice. 19 seconds to dry. Now the medium is the same tone as the extra fine with no feather spread, halo sheen. It still has some shading, but not as much as the extra fine did. You see the shading very well in the word fox, where it goes from lighter to darker. Brown goes from darker to a mid-tone back to dark again. So it is there, just not as stand out. 25 seconds to dry. The scrubby for both far left to far right do show some color variation. Not a ton. There is some in the writing, but not as much as we've seen before. The smear test shows that you could recover it if you accidentally smeared it while you were writing. Resistance tests are done to see how this ink can be expected to perform on the page, and more importantly, how hard it may be to clean from your pen. The smear is allowed to dry for 3 days before testing it. Looking at the highlighter, it handles itself fairly well. It does spread just a little bit, and there's a little bit of woolliness on the right side of the lowercase h, but I would still feel safe using this if I was using it to take notes. Now, water's reactivating and lifting all the darkest tones, but leaving all the lighter tones. Strangely, we aren't seeing the blue left behind that I was kind of expecting from the chromatography. We are starting to see some of the dots of the paper come through, which makes me feel like with a little more time, this could get it completely off the paper. Pen flush does everything that water does and nothing more. There's really not a need to go there if it's not giving you more of a performance. And the 1/3 bleach solution completely removes it from the paper. The next paper we're going to be looking at is Life paper. No bleeding, no ghosting. The 1.1 has no feather spread, halo sheen, some decent shading going on throughout. It's really, on the cream paper, I think this looks very nice. The extra fine has no feather spread, halo sheen. It does have quite a bit of very nice shading. Take a look at that word quick, from dark to light to dark brown, from dark to light. Nice, and 16 seconds to dry. Medium is about the same tone as the extra fine with no feather spread, halo sheen, and still great shading. This is such a nice shading ink. 21 seconds to dry. The scrubby for both show decent color variation left to right, although I think you see more in the writing than you do in the scrubby. The smear test shows that you could just barely recover what was written if you accidentally smeared it while you were writing. For the inks tested, there is an average viscosity or flow of 2.5, with the realm of normal being from 2.1 to 2.9. KWZ's Honey has a viscosity of 2.06, making this just a bit wetter than normal. It's a nice wet ink. If you're interested in how the viscosity is tested and how that bell curve is created, there's a link down in the description to that video. Our next writing sample is done on Apica CD notebooks. We get no bleeding, no ghosting. The 1.1 has no feather spread, halo sheen, and some very nice shading. The extra fine is a bit lighter than the stub with no feather spread, halo sheen, really great standout shading here. The amount of back and forth, look at the word over, from nice and light to dark. Beautiful stuff. Quick goes dark to light to dark to light to dark so many times. 12 seconds to dry. Medium is about the same tone as the stub with no feather spread, halo sheen, better shading than the stub. It's about shading like the extra fine did. Looking at Fox, starts dark, gets light, and gets dark again. 16 seconds to dry. The scrubby for both on far left to far right do show some color variation, and we definitely get it. The smear test, you could recover this if you smeared while you were writing. To find the average dry times, the writing samples done on Clairfontaine, Tomoe River, and Rhodia paper are averaged, processed, and put into a bell curve. For the inks tested, the average dry time is 17 seconds, with the realm of normal being from 13 to 21 seconds. KWZ's Honey has an average dry time of 23 seconds. So it's a bit slower drying, but I think the shading that you get is absolutely worth it. The last writing sample is done on Franklin Christoph paper. We get no bleeding, no ghosting. The 1.1 has no feather spread, halo sheen, only light shading going on like at the bottom of the Y or the very top of the K. Not very much at all to speak of. The extra fine has no feather spread, halo sheen. It does shade nowhere near as well as it did on other papers, but it's definitely there. When you look at the word quick, it stands out very nicely. Same with the word brown right here at the W to the N. 10 seconds to dry. The medium is about the same tone as the stub with no feather spread, halo sheen. It shades some, but really not very standout, not very nice here. You do see some of it with the Fox where it goes a little darker to a little lighter to a little darker. 13 seconds to dry. The scrubby for the medium doesn't show a lot of color variation, about as much as you see in the writing. The extra fine shows decent from far left to far right, and it's pretty good in the writing. And the smear test, you could recover this if you smeared while you were writing. Instead of finding inks that look like KWZ's Honey, I would prefer to find an ink that complements its color on the page. To go with that brown, I chose a nice green, Akkerman Dutch Masters No. 2. If you're not interested in Akkerman Dutch Masters No. 2 being your complement color, then down in the description there's links to all of the playlists of the ink reviews done sorted by color. So what do I think of KWZ's Honey? This is a great looking golden brown with some standout, very nice shading. I like the smell of the KWZ inks and can see getting a bottle of this particular ink for in the future, and it's sitting in the cart right now while I'm just waiting to be able to finish out an order. I really like this, and not just because it's a great brown. So what nib and pen would give the best writing experience with this ink? It looks amazing, no matter what pen you put it into. So this is really a dealer's choice for what pen it would go with, unless you don't like amazing inks. I hope you got something out of this video, and I would invite you back tomorrow to take a look at Rhodia and Klinger's Document Light Blue.